My Catholic Faith. Lesson 146. Graces from the Holy Eucharist. This is how we should kneel at the communion rail. We should not crowd or push. Insert 1 shows how to approach and leave the communion rail with joined hands and downcast eyes. Insert 2 shows how to receive Holy Communion. We open the mouth and extend the tongue a little over the lower lip. Meanwhile, let us welcome Jesus Christ into a joyful heart. The Eucharist is the Sacrament of Unity. The essential effect of Holy Communion is union with Christ, with God and our neighbour. The passing sacramental union with Christ, who is the fountain of all grace, signifies and produces an increase of supernatural life, that is, of sanctifying grace, of the Christ life in us, and therefore a spiritual and lasting union with Christ and the Blessed Trinity. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him. By uniting us with Christ, communion unites us more closely with all members of Christ, with Our Lady and the saints, with our brethren on earth. Though we are many, we are one body, because we partake of the one bread. At the same time, communion kindles actual love for God and for neighbour. This fervour of charity is the sacramental grace proper to communion. This is therefore the fruit we must principally look for in communion. It demands our active cooperation, acts of love, of full acceptance of the will of God, of full acceptance of our neighbour. Why is it that so many communicants are not conspicuous for their charity? Chiefly through the charity which it kindles, communion has other precious effects: spiritual joy, remission of venial sins, preservation from future sins, weakening of evil inclinations. What ordinary food does for the body, that the Eucharist does for the soul. It repairs waste, gives energy and joy. But, while ordinary food is changed into our body, the Eucharist assimilates us into Christ and gradually transforms us into Him. We should not expect communion to suppress temptations or to weaken our passions automatically. Normally it does not do away with the need for struggle, but by the light and strength it gives, it makes us prompt and energetic in overcoming passions and temptations. What should we do after Holy Communion? After Holy Communion, we should spend some time adoring our Lord, thanking Him, drawing from His heart a sincere love for God and our neighbour, offering ourselves for the task of the day, asking Him for blessings for ourselves and for others. We should not leave the church immediately after receiving Holy Communion. We should pray at least 10 or 15 minutes, thanking our divine guest. Our Lord is actually and personally present in us as long as the appearance of bread remains. If our work or duties prevent our staying in church to give proper thanksgiving, let us remain recollected and in union with Jesus on our way home, and let us remember Him with love throughout the entire day. Once St. Philip Neri noticed that a certain parishioner, for no reason, habitually left the church immediately after receiving Holy Communion. In order to correct him, he told 2 acolytes one day to accompany the man with lighted candles as he walked home. The acolytes did as they were told. Realizing his fault, the man returned and made the proper thanksgiving. How should we show our gratitude to our Lord for remaining always on our altars in the Holy Eucharist? We should show our gratitude to our Lord for remaining always on our altars in the Holy Eucharist by visiting Him often, by reverence in church, by assisting every day at Mass when this is possible, and by being present at benediction of the Blessed Sacrament. Wherever the Blessed Sacrament is reserved, a light must always be kept burning before it. Olive oil should be used. In case of necessity, the bishop may permit the use of a substitute. Paying visits to the Blessed Sacrament is a loving gesture towards our Lord, really present there. He is our best friend. Shall we not pay him a call once in a while? Cardinal Bellarmine, while still a student, used to pay a visit to the Blessed Sacrament every time he passed a church. When he was asked why he did this, he answered, "It would be ill manners to go by a friend's house without a word of greeting. The church door is always open to admit us, a constant invitation to us to visit our Lord who calls. Come to me, all you who labour and are burdened, and I will give you rest." Exposition and benediction of the Blessed Sacrament is an act of worship in which the sacred host, placed in the monstrance, is exposed to the people for adoration and is lifted up to bless them. The ciborium may be used instead of the monstrance. The Blessed Sacrament is solemnly exposed on certain occasions, as in the afternoon services on Sundays and holy days, on the eves of First Fridays, on the Feast of Corpus Christi, etc. An all-night vigil is kept before the Blessed Sacrament in the repository on the night of Holy Thursday. In many places, an all-night vigil is also held on New Year's Eve. It is usual to pray before the solemnly exposed sacrament on your knees. The 40 Hours devotion is a devotion to the Blessed Sacrament in memory of the 40 hours during which the body of Jesus stayed in the Holy Sepulchre after his burial on Good Friday up to his resurrection on Easter. Relays of worshippers take turns at adoration, watching and praying. This devotion appears to have developed from the Corpus Christi processions. Cardinal Newman said of benediction, "It is our Lord's solemn benediction of his people, as when he lifted up his hands over his children, or when he blessed his chosen ones when he ascended up from Mount Olivet." At benediction, at least 12 candles must be used on the altar. The Holy Hour is a devotion in honour of our Lord. It is often made before the Blessed Sacrament, although this is not necessary to gain the indulgences. The devotion consists of an hour of mental or vocal prayer in union with the prayer of Jesus in the Garden of Olives, in honour of his agony. The Holy Hour may be made either in public or in private. If in public, it must be made in church or chapel any hour of the day or night of any day in the week. Perpetual adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. There are a few churches and chapels where the Blessed Sacrament is solemnly exposed, that is, in a monstrance, day and night, 24 hours a day. In other churches, the Blessed Sacrament is exposed in the morning and towards the evening reserved again in the tabernacle. When such adoration takes place, there should be at least a few people in church to adore. They act as guardians and sentinels of our Eucharistic King. We should pay visits to such churches and pay our homage of adoration to our Lord in the sacrament of his love.